The chill of autumn swept through the streets of Pacific Heights, rustling the fading leaves that clung stubbornly to the trees. Inside my warm living room, I wrapped my hands around a steaming cup of blue bottle coffee, its rich aroma filling the air. As I gazed out the window, watching the golden leaves swirl in unpredictable patterns, I could not help but think about how my own life had taken turns I never expected. On the mantel, a framed photograph captured my parents, their smiles frozen in time. It was taken 5 years ago on one of our last family trips to Napa Valley, a place we visited every holiday. My father had always been proud of me, his voice still echoing in my memory. "Catherine, you are an incredible young woman." Resting on the mahogany coffee table was my wedding album, open to a page that once symbolized the happiest day of my life. There I stood, dressed in an elegant Verawan gown, next to David, both of us glowing with joy. My father had walked me down the aisle at Grace Cathedral with immense pride, while my younger sister, Britney, radiant in a custom Dior gown, celebrated with us as my maid of honor. At the time, I believed my life was unfolding perfectly. Looking at it now, it all felt like a distant, ironic memory. My name is Catherine Reynolds, and for the past decade, I have thrived as a marketing director at a prestigious firm. From my office on the 35th floor of our Market Street headquarters, the San Francisco skyline stretches before me, constantly fueling my ambition. Over the years, I have led high-stakes campaigns and collaborated with the biggest names in the tech industry, cementing my reputation as a leader in the field. When my parents passed away in an accident 5 years ago, the only family I had left was Britney. Taking care of her had always come naturally. I picked her up from school, helped with her homework, and listened to her dreams. After graduating from Stanford, I threw myself into building a career, but Britney took a different path. She left the University of Southern California and devoted herself entirely to social media. Now, she is a well-known influencer, boasting more than 500,000 followers. Her Instagram feed is a curated showcase of opulence, exotic resorts, Michelin-starred restaurants, and designer wardrobes fit for a celebrity. I met David 7 years ago at a corporate event, an annual gala on the rooftop of a Market Street high-rise. He was a guest from the investment banking division, effortlessly charismatic, with a glass of bourbon in hand. I still recall the way he leaned in and said, "Is it just me, or is this party missing something interesting?" His confidence, his impeccable Armani suit, the subtle elegance of his Hermes tie. It was impossible not to be drawn in. That night, we talked for hours on the terrace, our conversation flowing seamlessly between discussions about Silicon Valley's innovations and our shared passion for European art. Our relationship unfolded like a dream: anniversary dinners at Saison, exclusive wine tastings in Napa Valley, and extravagant getaways at the Four Seasons in Hawaii. David was an accomplished trader, earning over $500,000 annually. He surrounded me with the finest things: bespoke suits, private vineyard tours, and eventually, a marriage proposal in a Parisian suite at the Ritz. As he slid a Cartier diamond onto my finger over champagne and caviar, I was certain our future was destined for nothing but luxury and love. On the surface, our marriage was picture perfect. Our weekends began with breakfast at Tartine Bakery, where we savored buttery pastries and lattes before heading to Whole Foods to select fresh, organic ingredients. David adored my homemade beef bourguignon, declaring it the best meal he had ever tasted. Our vacations took us across Europe, strolling through Paris's Le Marais district or dining in candlelit restaurants in Rome's Trastevere neighborhood. It all seemed effortless, as though each moment was further proof of how perfect we were together. One of my favorite traditions was weekend shopping trips with Britney. Union Square was our playground, and our afternoons followed a predictable yet cherished routine: lunch at Neiman Marcus, followed by hours of boutique browsing. "Catherine, this new Chanel bag is absolutely stunning," she would exclaim, her eyes lighting up with excitement. She still had that same sparkle in her eyes she had when we were kids. I never hesitated to indulge her: designer handbags, luxury heels, statement jewelry. Seeing her happy made me happy. Afterward, We always ended our outings at Blue Bottle Coffee, sipping espresso while watching the energy of the city swirl around us. David, ever the man of grand gestures, surprised me with a crimson Tesla Model S for my birthday. "A car worthy of a woman like you," he had said, grinning. The sleek design and advanced technology matched my lifestyle perfectly. Meanwhile, Britney preferred something flashier, a pearl-white Porsche Cayenne, a vehicle that suited her influencer image. "Unlike you, sis, I need to make an impression," she would often remind me. Now, in the quiet of my Victorian home, built in the 1920s, I flipped through old photographs, each one a reminder of how much things had changed. In my study, where antique furniture met modern technology, my MacBook sat open, filled with notes for an upcoming presentation. Even on my days off, I prepared strategy, execution, results. That was my approach. Britney, on the other hand, lived in a world of glitz and glamour. Her Instagram feed was a glossy magazine spread of Valentino dresses and Gucci heels, her figure sculpted by the latest fashion trends. Thousands of likes flooded in under hashtags like #luxurylife and #jetsetglam. I had always been proud of her success. But looking back, I wondered how I had missed the signs of what was brewing beneath the surface. Britney's perfect, camera-ready smile had always been dazzling, but I never imagined the jealousy simmering beneath it would one day shatter everything between us. The signs had been subtle at first. David, who always made it home by 7 in the evening, began staying out later. Client meetings, urgent deals, excuses that gradually pushed his arrival to 11 at night or later. At the same time, my sister's Instagram feed became more extravagant. Lavish dinners at high-end restaurants, hashtags like #businessdinner and #luxurynight, many of them at places in the financial district, right near David's office. I told myself it was just coincidence. I had to believe that. Then came my birthday in June. For the past few years, I had hosted an intimate celebration at our Pacific Heights home. Britney arrived in a striking Valentino dress, a little too extravagant for a family gathering. "It is my sister's birthday, so of course I had to go all out," she said with a bright smile. But I noticed something. Her eyes lingered on David far too often. And he noticed her too. His glances in her direction were subtle, but they were there. His hand brushed against hers when he refilled her champagne, lingering just a second too long. I tried to brush it off. "I am imagining things," I told myself. "She is my sister. He is my husband. There is no way anything could happen between them." But the truth did not care about what I wanted to believe. One afternoon, I was walking toward Blue Bottle Coffee near the Ferry Building when I stopped dead in my tracks. At a terrace table, sitting far too close together, were my sister and my husband. A barista placed 2 cups of freshly brewed coffee in front of them, the same single-origin coffee I always ordered. Britney leaned into David's arm, her fingers lightly grazing the sleeve of his Tom Ford suit. And on those fingers? A Cartier bracelet. The same bracelet he had bought during his business trip to Paris last month, the one he told me was a gift for a client. I wanted to convince myself it was all a misunderstanding. But then David reached for her hand. The way he held it, the tenderness in his touch, the familiarity, it was the same way he had held mine the day he slipped my wedding ring onto my finger. My body refused to move. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. My designer heels wobbled against the pavement, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I watched the moment unfold, every fiber of my being hoping that I was wrong. But I was not. The next day, I stood at the entrance of my sister's penthouse, overlooking the San Francisco Bay. When Britney opened the door, she sighed, tilting her head as if she had expected me. "I am sorry, sis," she said, her voice carrying a thin veil of regret. But her eyes? They held nothing but certainty. Sitting on her pristine marble sofa, phone in hand, she spoke casually. "But David is perfect for me." A slow, sinking dread filled my stomach. Perfect for her. She let out a breathy sigh, scrolling through her phone as if this was just another casual conversation. He was never the right one for you, Catherine. In that moment, everything that had been gnawing at me fell into place. Britney leaned back, gazing out at the shimmering city skyline. You have always been the perfect one, she said. The straight-A student, the Stanford graduate, the high-powered executive. You got the dream job, the dream marriage, while I was just your shadow. She tossed her hair over her shoulder. Even becoming an influencer was never about the fame. It was about proving I had something you didn't. And I do. I said nothing. I reached into my wallet, pulled out a wedding photo, David and me, smiling, oblivious to the betrayal that would come, and placed it carefully on the table. Be happy. That was all I said before turning and walking away. The legal process began immediately. I hired Jennifer Brown, one of Silicon Valley's top divorce attorneys. In our first meeting, I laid out the evidence, the documentation, every detail necessary. She listened calmly before nodding. We will protect your rights, she assured me. David barely put up a fight. Whether it was guilt or eagerness to move on, he agreed to leave me with almost everything. You deserve it all, he said, as he signed the final documents. The Victorian home, the Tesla, the joint Swiss bank accounts, it was all mine. The day my divorce was finalized, I went to Grace Cathedral alone. 5 years ago, I had walked down that aisle in a white gown, my father by my side, believing in forever. Now I walked it alone, silence my only companion. The sunlight filtering through the stained glass cast gentle patterns on my face as I whispered to myself, those years were not a waste. They were real. But they are over. A new chapter awaited. Back at my Market Street office, I sat at my desk, sifting through stacks of proposals and client briefs. New projects, new goals, new ambitions. Outside my office window, San Francisco's skyline gleamed under the morning sun, a city of endless possibilities. I had poured myself into work. There was no time to think about love, no space left for distractions. Never again, I promised myself. Never again. Catherine, this is excellent work, said Sarah Johnson, our chief executive officer. Your proposal for the Metaverse campaign is brilliant. She smiled. I want to recommend you as the next candidate for vice president. My breath caught in my throat. Vice president. The words echoed in my mind, each syllable reaffirming what I had come to believe. Work is the only thing that will never betray me. This was what mattered now. And I was ready to give it everything. I threw myself into market analysis, competitor research, and strategic planning, my latest MacBook Pro glowing with meticulously crafted slides. Every detail had to be perfect. Love? Marriage? Those were relics of a past life. I told myself I did not need them anymore. Miss Parker, this presentation was truly remarkable. The client's words were met with applause from my team, sealing a major contract. A quiet sense of satisfaction settled within me. This is what matters. This is where I belong. Success through hard work, that was the only thing I needed. My mornings in the Victorian house followed a strict routine. An organic vegetable smoothie from Whole Foods, a single-origin blue bottle coffee in my favorite ceramic mug, and a notepad filled with ideas for the next big campaign. Every trace of my past life, wedding albums, rings, and old mementos, had been carefully packed away into storage. I had even redecorated, replacing old memories with modern pieces from anthropology. It was my way of moving forward. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. One crisp autumn morning, Janet from our real estate division called. Catherine, we found an incredible property for the Silicon Valley expansion, but the owner is someone pretty high profile. It was an opportunity one could not pass up. That afternoon, I drove to Palo Alto to view the building. It stood on a quiet street, a sleek fusion of glass and concrete, striking in its minimalist beauty. I could not help but admire the flawless balance between function and design. This is exactly what we have been looking for, I murmured to myself. I am glad you think so. It is my firm's proudest work. A deep, composed voice came from behind me. I turned to see a man in a tailored Brooks Brothers three-piece suit, exuding effortless confidence. James Morrison. A name I already knew. One of Silicon Valley's most sought-after architects, a Harvard graduate who had launched his own firm and gained international acclaim for his innovative designs. I quickly turned my attention back to the building. Stay professional, Catherine. A masterful blend of aesthetics and functionality, I commented. James smiled. Would you like a coffee? There is an excellent cafe inside. Before I could decline, he had already pressed the elevator button. At Bar's Coffee, nestled within the building, he spoke animatedly about the intersection of art and technology, sketching quick diagrams on a napkin as he explained his design philosophy. His passion was infectious, and despite myself, I found our conversation effortlessly engaging. It is refreshing to talk to someone who truly appreciates design, he said, his gaze warm. For the first time in a long while, my heart reacted, but I immediately silenced it. Over the next few weeks, negotiations over the property went smoothly. After each meeting, James would casually invite me to dinner, always phrasing it as just another business discussion. At first, I declined. But eventually, I found myself accepting. The chef at this restaurant has an incredible sense of balance, he once remarked as we dined at Saison, a Michelin 3-star restaurant. Over fine wine and carefully plated dishes, our conversations drifted from work to art, travel, and literature. I enjoy talking with an intelligent woman like you, he admitted one evening. I ignored the way those words sent a shiver down my spine. On weekends, he invited me to visit the buildings he had designed, always under the pretense of architectural inspections. I could never quite find a good reason to refuse. Great design is about enhancing people's lives, he said one afternoon, as we stood in the middle of a sunlit atrium. His voice held genuine conviction. I found myself watching him a little too closely, listening a little too intently. Then, small gestures began arriving. A book on architecture he thought I might enjoy, a ticket to a jazz concert I had mentioned wanting to see, a note about an upcoming exhibition he thought I would appreciate. Piece by piece, the walls I had built around my heart began to crumble. Christmas Eve. The Legion of Honor Gala. The courtyard, illuminated by moonlight, glowed softly in the winter air. And then, James knelt before me. From the moment I met you, I knew this was meant to be, he said, his voice steady. Will you walk this life with me? In his hand was a small velvet box. Inside, a vintage ring sparkled under the lights. My breath caught. I do not deserve. You deserve happiness more than anyone, he interrupted gently. If anything, I have spent every day wondering if I am worthy of you. With those words, the last remnants of my defenses shattered. Yes, I whispered, tears slipping down my cheeks. Marriage. A life together. James's mansion in Atherton, a masterpiece of his own design, became our home. Sunlight poured through large windows overlooking a lush, carefully curated garden. On weekends, we strolled through the farmer's market, hand in hand, selecting the best seasonal produce. He remembered every detail: how I liked my coffee, my favorite fruits, the exact shade of roses I loved. Mornings were spent in the kitchen, him flipping pancakes, me slicing fruit, laughter filling the air. Even in our professional lives, we remained a team. Our firms collaborated on groundbreaking projects, blending architecture and marketing in ways that redefined industry standards. You are the best partner, he would say, wrapping me in his arms. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. Love had found me again, patiently, steadily, until I had no choice but to let it in. At night, under the soft glow of terrace lights, we spoke about our future. Children. Dreams. A life built not just on ambition, but on something far greater. True happiness, I had learned, was quiet and steady, filled with love that did not demand attention but simply existed, strong and unwavering. As I sat at the breakfast table with James in our Palo Alto home, the scent of freshly baked croissants drifted through the air. I took a sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through me. Then my phone buzzed. An Instagram direct message, the first contact from my sister in 5 years. Sis, I had twins. Two adorable baby boys. Attached was a photo of two newborns swaddled in the softest white cashmere blankets. Britney was beside them, her hair styled to perfection, makeup flawless despite just having given birth. She wore a custom Dior maternity dress, and in the background, I could see the sleek, modern interior of a private luxury suite at Stanford Medical Center. Typical Britney. A second message followed almost immediately. Send me $10,000 as a baby gift. Wire it tomorrow, okay? Oh, and you should come visit my new place. The renovation is finally done. It's gorgeous, totally Instagram worthy. My fingers tightened around my mug. A small ripple of coffee spilled onto the marble countertop. Are you all right? James's voice was gentle, his gaze steady behind his glasses. I exhaled slowly. Yes. Then, without fully understanding why, I picked up my phone and typed a reply. Congratulations. Of course, I'll come, with my husband. How about tomorrow afternoon? The moment I pressed send, my heart raced. Why had I agreed? But there was no regret. Britney's response came almost immediately. Tomorrow at 3. I'll send you the address. She texted an address on Maple Street, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city, home to Silicon Valley's elite. A quick real estate search revealed that her home was worth an estimated $25 million. Had social media really made her that rich? So, we are visiting your sister tomorrow? James asked as he cleared our breakfast plates. Yes. And you're coming with me. His presence alone was a comfort. But as I glanced at him, I thought I caught the faintest hesitation in his expression. That night, as we prepared for bed, James uncorked a special bottle of wine, a 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild. He poured me a glass, the deep red liquid shimmering under the soft bedroom light. Tomorrow, everything will become clear, he said simply. The next afternoon, we drove to my sister's house in James's pearl-white Rolls-Royce Cullinan. As we approached, I absently smoothed the fabric of my coat sleeve, nerves making my fingers restless. In my handbag rested a silver baby spoon from Tiffany, an understated yet elegant gift for the twins. James, calm and composed, looked sharper than ever in a tailored Tom Ford suit. The crisp scent of leather from the car's seats mingled with the faint cologne he always wore, grounding me. The homes lining Maple Street were more than luxurious. They were statements of wealth and power. Massive iron gates, manicured gardens, round-the-clock security. Even among them, Britney's mansion stood out. A mix of Italian marble and sleek modern design, it was designed to impress. In the circular driveway, luxury cars gleamed under the sun. A Bentley Bentayga. A Mercedes Maybach S680. And, of course, her familiar pearl-white Porsche Cayenne. We rang the doorbell. After a brief security check via an intercom monitor, the grand gates swung open. The moment the door opened, Britney appeared, stunning as always. A Chanel tweed dress hugged her figure, not a trace of post-pregnancy weight in sight. She looked like she had stepped out of a fashion editorial. But the moment her eyes landed on James, her expression froze. The color drained from her face. Her manicured fingers trembled slightly where they rested on the doorframe. James's voice was smooth, his tone unreadable. It has been a while, Britney. I frowned. What was this reaction? Is your husband still in London? He added, his posture as composed as ever. I looked between them, confusion growing. Did they know each other? Then James reached for my hand, his warmth steadying me. Actually, he said, I was David's superior. I sat on the board of Goldman Sachs. Britney's breath itched. We were led into an opulent living room, where we sat on a designer Fendi Casa sofa. The scent of premium tea filled the space, served in an exquisite Christofle tea set. Above us, a baccarat chandelier glowed softly, casting delicate patterns of light across the room. James leaned back slightly, his expression calm but firm. David was a major issue at our board meetings. Britney swallowed hard. He was involved in multiple inappropriate relationships with female employees. Sexual harassment complaints, misconduct with clients, unauthorized personal expenses. There was even a leak of confidential company information. We were in the process of taking action against him when your divorce scandal made headlines. A heavy silence settled. Then Britney spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. David was sent to the London branch, she admitted, gripping the edge of a cashmere throw draped over her lap. At first, he convinced himself it was a promotion. But it was a demotion. He rarely comes home now. Her hands tightened around the fabric. My social media following is dropping. Brands are pulling sponsorships. Then James turned to me. I learned about you back then, Catherine. While investigating David's misconduct, I came across your name. But it was not until we met during the property negotiations that I truly understood who you were, an intelligent, kind woman. Britney inhaled sharply. Tears welled up in her eyes. Sis, I am so sorry. Her perfect mascara smudged as she wiped her cheeks, her voice cracking. I let jealousy cloud my judgment. I thought David saw me, but he only wanted a distraction. I was so wrong. She struggled for words, but I could see the regret in her eyes. Without speaking, I stepped forward and rested a hand on her shoulder. A week later, an envelope arrived at my home. A letter, written in Britney's elegant script. Dear Catherine, I am truly sorry for everything. I let jealousy consume me, and in doing so, I hurt the one person who always cared for me. But you found someone wonderful. Seeing James's kindness and dignity made me realize my own mistakes. I am stepping away from social media. The flashy lifestyle, it was never real happiness. Taking care of my sons has shown me what truly matters. I know I cannot undo the past, but I hope that someday, we can laugh together again as sisters. Asterisk, I read her words under the golden California sunlight, standing on the terrace of our home. The scent of blooming roses drifted in the breeze, a quiet reminder of life's ever-changing seasons. Behind me, I heard James's familiar footsteps. I made reservations at Saison's chef's table tonight, he said, his voice warm. I hear the new menu is extraordinary. I turned, smiling at him. As I picked up my Tesla keys, I looked up at the sky. Who would have thought life would unfold this way? Sometimes, the greatest happiness does not arrive with grandeur. Sometimes it is quiet, steady. And standing beside the person you love, you realize the future ahead is more beautiful than anything you ever imagined.